It can be extremely difficult to navigate connections with unconscious people, particularly when these interactions bring up difficult emotions and irritation. Their insensitivity and lack of emotional intelligence appears to always put a wedge between us and the people we're trying to connect with, making it seem like we're never heard or understood. Here, we'll investigate the difficulties of interacting with friends, family, and coworkers who seem oblivious to the effect their actions have on people around them. Peace and lessons in self-awareness and acceptance can be ours when we take the time to understand the complexities of these relationships. Instead of seeing these encounters as mere roadblocks, you may come to see them as chances for personal development and insight. Are you interested in finding out how to turn these experiences into opportunities to strengthen your emotional resilience? Pay close attention, since the information you find here has the potential to change your relationship with those who test your tolerance and outlook on life. For further guidance through the emotional maze of life, subscribe now. You will likely never be able to rid your life of problematic people entirely. Difficult people, people who aren't paying attention. There are different levels of unconsciousness. People who are so oblivious that they continue to do violent acts are an example of a very extreme kind of unconsciousness. When it comes to severe forms of unconsciousness, it's best to avoid being around people who act out in extreme ways, such as having a violent relationship. Emotional abuse, or a person whose hold on profoundly unpleasant feelings or physical suffering is nearly impossible to release, also fall into this category. Other, more common types of unconsciousness are, however, present in the vast majority of persons you encounter. Everyone has family members, and dealing with them can be a challenge in and of itself. In some circumstances, family can be quite difficult, but in others, it can be a very loving and great thing. You might love your parents deeply, and yet find them challenging at times. Something like this happened to me when I was a kid, and it was either hilarious or really embarrassing. For the rest of my life, I kept thinking about a dream I experienced long ago. It was probably when I was 11 or 12 years old. Before I tell you about the dream, I should mention that my dad had a major ego problem and would often explode in rage, which luckily never hit me, but did target my mom and occasionally other people. It was as if you were living next to a ticking time bomb whenever you were around him. I had just murdered my father, dismembered him, and placed his remains in a bag in my dream. My dad returned from work as soon as the door swung open, and I slipped the bag beneath the bed. I sprinted over to embrace him. It was a vivid dream that showed how conflicted my feelings were toward him. I adored the actual person hiding behind his rage and ego, but I despised the ego itself. This ambivalence is common in our relationships, particularly those with those closest to us. Even though you find them challenging, you may still feel a strong attraction to them. You have no choice but to acknowledge these people as family, unless they ignore you. It's all part of how the real you exists within us. You may not live with them anymore, but you still see them or interact with them from time to time. Unless their unconsciousness is so severe, this can be a helpful method for practicing acceptance. Keep talking to them and learn from these difficult interactions how to control your reactions to their activities if that's the case. You can learn to accept things without resistance by paying attention to your reaction to them. My enlightenment at the age of 29 was the catalyst for that change. Since I was no longer physically present when he passed away, our relationship blossomed. One of the happiest times of my life was when I left home at the age of 18, and it was because of my dad's second marriage as much as anything else. But I was still conflicted about how I felt about him. I was able to fully embrace him after my awakening at the age of 29. A kid couldn't have done that. Thus, this was easier. It was always fine whenever we met, since I could just let him be himself. Even his ego got a little less excessive. He altered a little. Although he became more self-aware in certain areas, it remained. When I finally gave up trying to make him be more self-aware and just accepted him, it was a tremendous relief. You can't expect someone to be more mindful just because you tell them to be. Behaviors outside the realm of awareness are impossible for any individual to exhibit. Their conditioned conduct is evident in all of their actions. Because they are so engrossed in their emotional and mental indoctrination, many people have little agency. This is true not only for those you live with, but also for those you meet on a regular basis. Going to work is the norm, and that's where most individuals connect with other people. In most cases, you won't have much of an option but to engage in conversation or find another employment. However, it's advisable to practice acceptance wherever you go, because you're likely to meet other unconscious beings. However, if you're in a poisonous situation, it could be best to leave. You should be able to practice your reactions with challenging people unless they are particularly toxic and unconscious. You should first stop insisting that they should be distinct. Just because they are annoying doesn't mean you have to. You have to tell them straight out when their actions are unacceptable. You should exercise caution if you are contacting the company director, because doing so could result in the termination of your employment. See File 99.3, You're on the spot. As your awareness expands, you may find that reaching out to other, more enlightened people becomes second nature. As you open yourself to others, you'll find that they're doing the same. Some individuals in your close vicinity might start to wake up as a result of you. No one can say for sure, but it's possible that some people will notice, maybe subconsciously, that you've changed. You can bring greater presence into their lives by not adding to or bolstering their unconsciousness. For instance, if you and a friend both have a problem with excessive gossiping, you may decide to cut back when you become more self-aware. Because gossip requires two individuals to sustain it, you may find that it dies down if you stop adding fuel to the fire. On the other hand, this individual can start to ignore you and stop communicating with you altogether. Someone may tell you, "You're no fun anymore," or stop communicating with you altogether. I already mentioned that more thoughtful people will most certainly enter your life, but this is still possible. Both situations will be experienced by you. In the end, developing a stronger sense of compassion and growing as an individual are more important goals than simply learning to manage difficult situations when navigating relationships with unconscious people. Although it may be unrealistic to expect life to be free of challenges, we can train ourselves to face them with the kind of empathy and comprehension that allows us to develop. Instead of trying to influence other people, we can work on improving our own reactions, which will give us more control over our relationships and help us build healthier ones. A helpful piece of advice is to be patient and understanding of other people's limits and to establish firm boundaries that put your own needs first. Keep in mind that every interaction presents an opportunity for learning and progress as you begin your life-altering path of self-discovery and personal transformation. To show your appreciation for this conversation and encourage others to do the same, like the video, comment now to declare your intention to make a difference and share it with someone you think might find it helpful. If you want to learn how to improve your emotional intelligence and have successful relationships, subscribe to the channel